Thank you. So this is the first year that I've started doing conference talks. I'm really excited about it. My mom is also really excited about it. So would you do me a favor and take a selfie with me so that I can actually show her that we did this? All right, okay. All right, here we go. Oh, hold on, switch it around.
They were.
There we go. All right, everybody say hi, Mom. Awesome, thank you. You're the best audience ever. Okay. So, hi. I want to talk to you about creating a culture of inclusion. And doesn't that just sound really nice, sort of like free donuts or world peace? There are lots of reasons that this is important to me personally. In my past lives, I've been a queer activist, a social justice educator, an out gay man, and just somebody who cares about humanity. But then I became a father. And now these two little delightful children, when they're not terrorizing my life, constantly have me thinking about what I can be doing to make the world a better place for them. Because let's face it, we live in a world where people are treated differently because of who they are and how they look. Some people like to say that we live in a colorblind society or we've moved beyond seeing race, but the people who are saying that are not the people who experience racism on a daily basis. And we've all seen the headlines about how tech has a diversity problem. Many of us in the room have probably felt it ourselves, either being personally discriminated against or just feeling left out. Or you've looked around your organization and noticed, wow, everybody here looks just like me. Or conversely, nobody here looks like me. According to research from Glassdoor, 67% of job seekers consider workplace diversity an important factor when they're considering job opportunities. And more than 50% of current employees want their workplace to do a better job of increasing diversity. But what we know is just getting people in the room with different characteristics doesn't solve the problem. It's a start, don't get me wrong, but we need to take a hard look at the culture and what we're doing or not doing to be truly inclusive. When I talk about a culture of inclusion, I mean a place where the organization, customs, beliefs, and actions truly honor and welcome all individuals, where factors like race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability status, cultural background, body shape and size, mental health, religion, ethnic and cultural background, socioeconomic status, all of these things don't prevent someone from being fully involved. A place where people are not just invited in, but are truly made a part of the organization. It's about creating a sense of belonging. So today, I want to suggest to you some things that you can do to help create this culture within your own organizations. Just like Jocelyn reminded us this morning that we can push our organizations to be more ethical, I would say we can also push them to be more inclusive. The first thing you can do is just to be yourself. You are valuable. You bring a unique set of talents and perspectives to your organization. And you should feel comfortable bringing all the aspects of your identity with you to work. When we are our whole, authentic selves, we make it easier for others to do the same. And if we're going to truly value difference, we need to make it visible. When our culture is truly inclusive, the parts of our identity that make us unique become common and ordinary rather than strange or exotic. For example, I talk about my husband in casual conversation just as much as my coworkers talk about their opposite-sex partners. It should be completely normal to ask for an adjusted work schedule because you're fasting during Ramadan. We all need to feel comfortable expressing ourselves so that we can feel safe and included. Last month, I attended HashiConf, and when I was there, I heard a HashiCorp engineer talking about how he unintentionally triggered a movement within the organization that led to the creation of pride stickers and other swag just because he asked. He wanted to be visible as a queer person in tech, and in doing so, he created a space that made it easier for others to do the same. It's not always easy, especially if you feel like you're the only person like you. But sometimes I think you'll be surprised what you'll find when you ask. And then, if you work at an organization that doesn't respect you for who you are, try to find allies within the organization that can help you bring about the change necessary. And if that doesn't work, it might be time to look for a different organization. Now, for some of us, that's easier said than done. I know that I'm speaking from a place of privilege as a cis white male who's pretty established in my career, and not all of us can take those kinds of risks. The second thing you can do is be mindful of the words you use every day. I'm not talking about political correctness. I'm talking about being aware of the language that you use and how it may impact people. For starters, use gender-neutral terms. I have a coworker from California who calls everybody dude or bro, and every sentence either starts with dude or ends with bro. And he's trying really hard to change, but like any other habit, it's hard to break. Or take my husband, for example. He often talks about how his father, and I'm sure a lot of people's fathers did the same, always taught him that the polite way to address a group of women was ladies. Hello, ladies, how are you today? Well, that can be perceived as diminutive or condescending, and you also don't know if everybody in the group actually identifies as a lady. There are lots of alternatives, and like anything else, it takes practice. So I encourage you to try it out while you're here at the conference. But you have to give yourself permission to make mistakes, because that's what matters, the trying. That's what signals, hey, I get it, and I'm working on being more inclusive. It's not about being perfect and getting it right all the time. I'm standing up here doing this talk. I did it at 2 other conferences, and I watched the video recently, and I noticed that the first thing I did when I walked on stage was I said, hey guys, you have to give yourself permission to make mistakes, because even that opens up the opportunity for further dialogue. And I can't talk about gender-inclusive language without mentioning pronouns. With singer Sam Smith recently announcing their pronouns, it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment. We need to respect how people choose to identify, and it's another opportunity to make things more visible. I've started including my pronouns in my email signature, my Twitter bio. You can get the stickers at registration to put them on your name badge. When everyone is explicit about their pronouns, including the people whose gender isn't typically called into question, it actually makes it more comfortable for someone who identifies as non-binary or whose presentation might not match their pronouns to self-identify and ask to be called what they want to be called. The third thing you can do is get to know people as individuals and treat them as such. You are a complete, complex person with a multifaceted identity, and so are all of your coworkers. Try not to rely on stereotypes based on someone's appearance or background to let them determine how you interact with them. At the end of the day, we're all individuals with our own unique blend of nature and nurture that govern how our personalities manifest. When we start treating some people differently or excluding them, we miss out on the value that they bring to our organizations. A good friend of mine, Vernon Wall, who does diversity training, talks about the tape recorder that plays in our heads. Now, for you youngins who don't know what that is, think a Spotify playlist. These are the messages that we picked up as we were growing up from our families, our school, our church, wherever. There are things that you noticed even subconsciously. Maybe it was observing how people will be treated differently based on how they looked or where they were from, or even explicit messages like being told a particular group is lazy or women belong in the kitchen. All these messages were recorded on the track in your head, and it's constantly playing in the background without you even really noticing. So when you see someone walking down the street who looks a certain way, without thinking about it, you draw on all those messages and make assumptions about that person. And this is unconscious bias. It's very hard to undo that programming because it's often rooted in fear, superstition, or ignorance. And usually the people we pick those messages up from were the people we came to trust and believe in the most when we were young. Using my husband as an example again, he talks about the messages that he got from his mother, that anyone who doesn't like animals is evil, and you can't trust men who wear pinky rings. Obviously, these are silly. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of truth in there, I'm not sure. But that's unconscious bias that's constantly playing on some level. But you can undo this too. It requires a lot of self-awareness. It can be helpful to ask your colleagues or your friends what they think your biases are. Having open and honest conversations about the biases that other people see us displaying can reveal our bias blind spots so that we can become more aware and take them into consideration. This is something else you can work on here during the conference. Try to notice when you're making an assumption about someone that you don't know, and think about where it's coming from. What are the messages that are playing in your head? According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, about 1 in 5 adults in the US experience some kind of mental illness in a given year. Some mental illnesses are more debilitating than others, but the reality is most of us will be impacted by our mental health at some point or another. And this can include illnesses like depression and anxiety, or neurodevelopmental disorders like learning disorders and autism. The fourth thing you can do is practice empathy and compassion for your coworkers who might be struggling with any of these issues. For most of us, our jobs are stressful. Usually, it's a positive kind of stress that helps us get better at our work and challenges us to improve. But what we need to understand is that we all come to work with different experiences and needs. For me, standing up here doing public speaking is stressful. I mean, just check my heart rate monitor. But for someone with anxiety, it could be really hard and almost impossible. Educate yourself about the signs that someone might be struggling. Pay attention to your coworkers and what's going on with them. And find ways that work for you to reach out to them. You don't need to be a therapist or have a degree in counseling to check in with someone and see if they need help. Just asking a simple question lets someone know that you care about them and want them to find the help that they need. And it's probably best not to try to give advice yourself, but rather help someone find the resources that they need. Open Sourcing Mental Illness is a great resource to learn more about mental health and tech, and they have several resources and videos on their website. And right here in Philadelphia, there's an organization that provides mental health first aid training sessions, so you can learn to spot the signs of behavioral health issues and provide help. You can even take a free online screening to assess your own behavioral health. Talking openly about mental health can help to reduce the stigma around it and contribute to a more inclusive culture. I'll tell pretty much anybody who will listen that between my husband and I, we see 2 individual therapists and a couples therapist every month. Be sure to take the time for self-care too. We all know that burnout is a real thing. If your company allows for mental health days or has unlimited PTO, take advantage of it when you need it. And be as open as you feel comfortable with your supervisor about your needs. The fifth thing you can do is pay attention to the people in your organization whose voices and perspectives are being marginalized. It's likely not even intentional, but how often have we been sitting in a meeting room and one of your female colleagues presents an idea, 2 minutes later, some bro says the exact same thing and everyone's like, oh, he's a genius, right? This happens all the time. Those of us with privilege have a responsibility to take notice and do something about it. So the next time that female colleague speaks up, chime in with, hey, that sounds really interesting, tell us more, before somebody else can co-opt the idea. We can't expect someone who's being marginalized to always be able to advocate for themselves. If you have colleagues who you think might not be being included, check in with them and see how they're doing. And think about ways that you can be an ally. It's important to have a working environment that's accessible to individuals with physical disabilities, but creating a welcoming space goes further than that. Go beyond thinking about accommodation and instead look at inclusive design, which focuses on making environments universally accessible and looks beyond disability. Think about what someone with different needs from you might need and make that the norm rather than the exception that they have to request. This not only helps the person that might need the accommodation, but it's also a clear signal of inclusion. Make your slide decks and websites that are easy to read by people with low vision. Provide your trainings and workshops in a variety of modes for people with different learning styles. And it's not just about disabilities. Encourage your company to have lactation rooms, nap rooms, prayer and meditation rooms. These all make your space more welcoming for everybody. The goal is to make sure that everyone is able to fully participate. At another conference I was at recently, they were announcing lunch, and they were describing the options. They said, we have this chicken sandwich on a whole wheat wrap, and we have this beef sandwich on brioche, and it's all great. And then we have some vegetarian thing. Later in the day, I was speaking with one of the attendees who had the vegetarian option, and she said that she should have known the way they described it, that it was completely an afterthought. And she wished she'd gone out and found her own lunch. I can tell you she wasn't feeling very included that day. If you're involved in the hiring process in your organization, take a critical look at your processes. How diverse are the individuals in your candidate pool? How can you actively reach out to candidates who have traditionally been underrepresented? Find organizations like Project North Star here in, here in Philadelphia and hire their amazing engineers. Remember that unconscious bias we talked about? Be really mindful of it in your interview process. For example, we know from some research that those with, quote, ethnic sounding names in Western countries are less likely to even be selected for interviews just based on the name on their resume. Notice when you are evaluating candidates differently based on their identity. If you see a female candidate and a male candidate exhibit the same behavior, do you treat them differently? Make sure that your evaluation criteria are objective and clear, and consider offering anti-bias training for your recruiting teams and hiring managers. And after hiring, do you have clear objectives and explicit criteria for promotions and reviews? Without clearly defined expectations, it makes it really easy for that unconscious bias to creep back in. Often at these conferences, like Clinton mentioned this morning, we have codes of conduct that call out what behavior is acceptable and what is not. Encourage your organization to have one and make it public. People who are likely to experience harassment or have experienced it in the past will be more likely to join your organization if they feel it's going to be a safe place for them where harassment won't be tolerated. The 2018 Women in the Workplace report found that only 27% of employees say that managers regularly challenge biased language and behavior when they observe it. And only 40% say that disrespectful behavior toward women is quickly addressed by their company. Only 32% think that their company swiftly acts on claims of sexual harassment. But it's not just sexual harassment we need to be aware of. Don't tolerate jokes about mental disorders or biased language about women, racial groups, LGBT people, anything. When you see behavior that's inappropriate or disrespectful, speak up. Change won't come if we're all silent. Finally, take the time to learn about the experiences of people who are different from you. Look for books, podcasts, blog posts from a variety of perspectives. The uploaded slides from this presentation include links to some suggested resources you can check out as a starting point. And I was reading a thread on Twitter lately about how to be less of a, quote, clueless white person without asking people of color to do the work for you. And the suggestion was, go right now on social media, you're all on your phones right now anyway, follow 50 people of color on social media and just listen. Don't comment, don't retweet, Just listen. And you can do this with any identity that's different from your own. So that's it. We've solved the problem, right? Seriously, these are my ideas of what I think you can do today to help your organization and yourself be more inclusive. I hope you took away something that you found helpful. And remember that this is a journey that we're all on together. None of us are perfect or have all the answers. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Please check out this link. Please give me your feedback. Download the slides if you'd like. If you don't get the Pearl Jam reference in the URL, I can't help you. If you want to talk more about this, pitch an open space and we can have a conversation about it, or grab me in the hallway. I'm happy to talk. Thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of your conference.